Imagine this. You're driving through a remote stretch of highway, the road stretching endlessly in front of you, and a sense of unease creeps over you. Something's wrong. The air feels thicker, the shadows deeper. You pass a gas station, and a stranger hands you cryptic directions to an unknown route. One that's meant to offer you something different, something you can't find on a map. The further you go, the more unsettling the journey becomes, until the tunnel you enter seems to have no end. Time warps, the world around you twists, and you begin to realize you're not alone. Something is watching, waiting, and it's drawing you in. And as you try to escape, you discover something far worse. The nightmare isn't just on the road, it's inside your mind. Hello everyone, I'm Dusky Nights, and I bring you real-life horror stories that will help you fall asleep. But before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? And what time is it right now? Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I've been stuck driving in an endless highway tunnel for 10 hours. Somehow, I've managed to find a spot in this tunnel with enough signal to hopefully get this post out. I'm clinging to this single bar for dear life. The situation is becoming more desperate by the hour. I'm running out of gas, and as that happens, I lose access to everything, including the power to charge my phone. The only food I have is a bag of Sour Patch Kids, a box of Cheez-Its, 2 Red Bulls, and about half a gallon of water. It's not enough, and I'm feeling it. But first, let me try to explain what's going on. I'm a traveler. It's who I am. Road trips are in my blood. Driving cross-country has always been my thing. Always chasing the horizon. Always pushing forward. Seeing new places. Experiencing new things. The solitude of the road is something that has always brought me peace. I can think, I can listen to music, and I can reflect. But lately, it's felt different. The peace has been replaced with something else, something darker. I'm currently on a trip from Los Angeles to Chicago. This wasn't my first time doing this route, but this time I opted for the interstates. Quicker, more efficient. I've done Route 66 before. That was a fun scenic detour. But this time I chose the faster route, cutting through the heart of the country, passing through places like Colorado, Nebraska, and Iowa. It should have been just a typical road trip. Everything was fine. It started off normal, just the usual monotony of the open road, the endless stretches of highway, the passing miles of fields, mountains, and cities. I kept my radio low, the hum of the tires on the asphalt, my only companion. But somewhere along the way I began to notice that the drive was becoming different. Not in a physical sense. No flat tires or breakdowns, but mentally. The vast emptiness around me began to make me feel small, vulnerable. The silence seemed to seep into my mind. The first night, I stopped in a Walmart parking lot in Colorado. I had driven through the night, over 14 hours straight. I hadn't really felt tired, at least not until I parked. I grabbed dinner at Taco Bell, scarfed down some chips, and eventually crashed in the front seat of my SUV. I slept like the dead, but I woke up the next morning feeling uneasy. I couldn't explain it. A weird sense of dread filled me as soon as I opened my eyes. But I pressed on. The next morning I woke early and filled up on gas. I grabbed some Red Bulls and beef jerky for the road, then headed out, eager to make good time. The road felt endless, but not in the way it usually did. It felt like I was stuck in a loop. As I neared Nebraska, I realized I was driving through one of the most desolate areas I'd ever encountered. It was all cornfields and flat plains, nothing for miles, just fields and road. I stopped at a small gas station somewhere near Kearney, Nebraska, a pit stop I didn't plan on, but needed for a bathroom break. It was a rundown place, the kind of gas station you see in horror movies. The faded neon lights, the cracked window on the door, and the smell of old cigarettes in the air. The man behind the counter had this bored, vacant look on his face. He looked like he'd been working there for decades, without any change. "Can I use the bathroom?" I asked, already feeling a sense of discomfort. He looked up, startled, and then grinned. "There's a bucket out back, princess," he said with a stifled chuckle. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. He didn't laugh, though. Instead, he handed me a tarnished key attached to a piece of wood that read "Pisser" in crude letters. He pointed toward a door at the far end of the shack, and without much choice I took the key, nodded, and walked outside. The bathroom was exactly as you'd expect it to be. Filthy, neglected, with a smell that made my stomach churn. I quickly finished up, returned the key, and tried to shake off the strange feeling that had begun to gnaw at my nerves. "Where are you headed?" Gus, the cashier, asked as I handed back the key. I told him Chicago, just passing through, and he gave me a long, odd look before answering. "Well," Gus said, scratching his chin thoughtfully, "if you've got some time, I know of a scenic route a little further up the road. Not many people take it, but it's got great views, and if you're into local folklore, you might want to check it out." His words barely registered at first, but then he went on to describe a small dirt road that veered off from I-80, leading to a more isolated part of the mountains. I wasn't in a rush, so I thought, why not? I was curious to see a part of Nebraska I'd never seen before. Gus gave me directions, telling me it was just up the road a couple of miles. After we finished our conversation, I decided to grab some snacks, Sour Patch Kids, Cheez-Its, a couple more Red Bulls, and filled up the gas tank. I had no idea what lay ahead, but I was ready for the next chapter of the journey. The drive to the turnoff was uneventful. The landscape stretched on, fields of corn on either side, endless and monotonous. But then I saw it, just as Gus had promised. A break in the crops, a dirt road that was barely visible amidst the vast fields. It was the only break in the sea of green. I made the turn without hesitation. The road was bumpy and unpaved, but it led up into the foothills. The view was breathtaking. I could see the mountains in the distance, jagged and covered with patches of trees. I felt a sense of excitement, a weird thrill, as if I had stumbled upon something no one else had. The road started to curve upward, winding higher and higher. The air grew thinner, fresher, and I rolled my windows down, letting the cool breeze whip through the car. The road eventually turned from dirt to old cracked pavement, and I continued to ascend, leaving behind the barren farmland below. The drive felt peaceful. There was something calming about it, even though the isolation grew as I climbed higher. I didn't see another car or person the entire time. I stopped at a few lookouts, taking in the beauty of the rolling hills and the endless fields below. I stopped for a cigarette, and it felt like the whole world was mine. There was no one around to interrupt, no noise other than the occasional rustling of leaves in the wind. But then I came to the tunnel. It was strange, sudden, unmarked. I had no idea it was coming, and I didn't think much of it at first. Tunnels were common in mountain roads, and this one wasn't any different. I slowed down as I approached, my headlights illuminating the narrow, dark opening. As I drove through, I noticed something odd. The tunnel felt longer than most. The dim orange lights overhead flickered, with every passing second casting strange shadows along the walls. But I didn't think much of it at the time. I pressed on. Minutes passed, and then the lights began to dim. At first it was barely noticeable, just a few seconds of darkness between each flickering bulb. But then the intervals grew longer, 30 seconds, a minute. Eventually, there were no lights at all. It was pitch black. I didn't panic at first. I told myself that it was just a malfunction, that the lights would come back on. But after driving for what felt like an hour, I began to question my bearings. This was taking too long. I should have reached the end by now. I turned around, figuring I had missed the exit. But when I retraced my steps, nothing changed. The darkness stretched ahead of me like an abyss, the road winding endlessly through the mountain. I looked for any sign that I was going the right way, but there was nothing. After another hour of driving, without seeing any signs of light, I realized the truth. I was trapped. I sat there for a long time, stuck in the dark, listening to the silence. My mind raced with possibilities. The car's headlights barely cut through the endless void ahead of me. My phone had no service, and the radio was dead. I was alone in this black hole with no way out. It felt like the tunnel was alive, like it was changing, shifting around me. After another hour, I was getting desperate. I had to get out. I had to keep moving. But the longer I stayed in the tunnel, the more I felt like I was being swallowed by it. The walls seemed to close in, the air thick with something I couldn't name. I tried to calm myself, but then I heard something faint, a noise in the distance. It sounded like footsteps, but they were too distant, too distorted to be real. I listened, straining to hear. The wind had picked up, but it sounded different now. There was something in the tunnel with me, something moving. It's been 32 hours now. I'm still here, still alive, still stuck, still trapped. I don't know how long I've been in this hellhole. I'm losing track of time. It could be days. It could be weeks. Every minute feels like an eternity. But somehow, I've managed to get a tiny bar of signal. I'm praying this post goes through. Thank you to everyone who's commented on my last post. It's been comforting to read your advice, theories, and stories. I feel a little less alone, but I'm still scared as hell. There's been a theory circulating that Gus, the man at the gas station, might have laced my food or drinks with something. At first, that sounded almost comforting to me. I kept telling myself that maybe this is all some crazy hallucination brought on by the snacks, Red Bulls, or even the cigarettes. That's what I wanted to believe. That maybe none of this was real. That I was just caught in a bad trip, lost in some bizarre nightmare. But it's not. I fell asleep this morning somewhere around 8 a.m., exhausted and drained. When I woke up, it was 4 p.m., but I couldn't tell if the panic in my chest was from something real, or if it was just my mind tricking me again. The tunnel's still here. I'm still here, and I think I know what's going on now. It wasn't the food or the drinks, it's the tunnel itself. I woke up today with a heavy heart. The dread settled into my bones. As much as I tried to rationalize it, there was only one thing I could do. I had to face this head on. I had to go forward. I turned my car around, back into the darkness, back into the claustrophobic belly of this never-ending tunnel. It felt like a mistake from the moment I made the U-turn, but I had no choice. It was like this place, this tunnel, was forcing me to go back, to play by its rules. I'd been running on fumes for a while now. The gas was down to less than a quarter tank, but my phone still had some charge left, just barely enough to keep me connected to reality. Every 10 to 15 miles, I'd pass through a sweet spot where I'd catch a single bar. It was a fleeting, frustrating relief. But it kept me going. I'd read your messages, respond, even if it was just for a few minutes. But then it started. My car sputtered. The low fuel light blinked angrily. I pressed on, ignoring the sinking feeling in my stomach. My thoughts spun wildly, trying to focus on anything else but the inevitable. It was around 7 p.m. when the car finally came to a halt. The engine made a sickly cough before it died completely. I sat in silence for a long time. My mind was numb, but my gut was screaming at me, telling me to go back, to forget this whole damn thing. But I couldn't. Not anymore. I knew what I had to do. There was no way out of here, unless I confronted what was happening. I packed a bag. There was no real plan, just a vague hope that I could find some exit, some way out. I gathered my supplies, water, snacks, my portable charger, a blanket, warm clothes, a journal, and pen in case my phone died, a flashlight, extra batteries, a flare, and of course, my cigarettes and a lighter. Everything felt so pointless, but at the same time it was all I had. I sat there for a while, the door of the car still shut tight. I was scared to open it. I was scared of what waited outside, but I had no choice. Taking a deep breath, I counted down from 10. On 1, I swung open the door and stepped into the darkness. The wind was cold. The tunnel felt colder, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones and refuses to leave. It was an eerie, unsettling sensation, like the tunnel itself was alive, breathing, watching. The air felt damp, and the ground beneath my feet was slick with liquid, which I couldn't identify. I pointed my flashlight ahead of me, the small beam cutting through the overwhelming blackness. It was disorienting. The tunnel felt endless, stretching out in both directions. I focused on the small spot of light in front of me, trying not to look at the walls too much. I didn't want to see the cracks, the way the darkness seemed to pulse, almost like it was alive. Every few steps, I heard sounds, tiny scuttles, faint whispers, the soft clink of pebbles bouncing along the tunnel floor. My flashlight shook in my hand as I tried to focus on the path ahead, but it was hard. The tunnel was playing tricks on my mind. I walked for what felt like hours, counting the miles in my head. I kept telling myself that soon I'd find another sweet spot, another area where the signal would come back. But each time I looked at my phone, the bar was gone, leaving me even more isolated than before. It was about an hour and a half into my walk when I stopped to tie my shoes. I bent down, trying to regain some sense of normalcy, trying to ignore the dread that continued to gnaw at me. As I fumbled with my laces, my flashlight slipped out of my pocket and rolled across the floor, coming to a stop about 10 feet behind me. The beam of light illuminated something, a shape. At first, I thought it was just the shadows playing tricks on me, but as I stared, I realized what I was seeing. A figure pressed against the wall. A person, no, a silhouette of a person, standing perfectly still, their face pressed into the rock. I held my breath, hoping it would go away, praying that I had imagined it, but I couldn't look away. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, as still as the rock itself. I forced myself to finish tying my shoes, my hands trembling. I grabbed the flashlight and quickly walked across the tunnel, trying not to look at the shape. I couldn't bring myself to acknowledge it. I didn't want to repeat the mistake I made yesterday when I had called out to whatever was in this tunnel. I didn't want to attract its attention. I kept walking, my heart racing. The footsteps from before, the ones that haunted me, were growing louder in my mind. The closer I got to the end of the tunnel, the more I could feel something watching me, something following me. After what felt like forever, I reached my rest spot. My car seemed like a distant memory now, a place that felt safer than this dark, suffocating tunnel. I sat down, wrapping myself in the blanket I had packed. My hands shook as I tried to steady myself. The cold was unbearable, and I had no idea how long I could keep walking. My phone had a single bar, I took advantage of it, scrolling through the comments. It was the only thing that kept me grounded. I started to hum a random tune I couldn't place. It was something my mother had always told me to stop doing when I was younger, but I couldn't help it. The tune just bubbled up inside me. I didn't even realize I was humming aloud until I heard it. A voice, faint, almost imperceptible at first. Then it came again. The tune, but wrong, distorted. The sound of it made my skin crawl. It wasn't human. It was crackling, hoarse, like something that had never known what music was trying to imitate it. I stopped humming, my blood running cold. The sound didn't stop. It continued, coming from both directions in the tunnel. I couldn't see the source, but I could hear it. A choir of distorted voices repeating the same melody I had just hummed. They were getting closer. I closed my eyes, trying to shut it all out, but I couldn't. The sound surrounded me. It filled my head. The footsteps started again. They were closing in. I grabbed my flashlight and turned it off, throwing the blanket over my head. I needed to hide. I needed to get away from the noise, the voices, the things that were closing in on me. I lay still, focusing on my breathing, trying not to let the panic consume me. I heard the footsteps stop right in front of me. I felt the figure lean down, close enough that I could hear its breath. It didn't move. It didn't touch me. It just breathed slow and steady. I could feel the heat of its breath on my skin, even though I was hidden under the blanket. The footsteps moved away. The humming stopped. For a moment, everything was silent. I woke up to a sharp whisper, "Wake up." It was like someone had shouted directly into my ear. It felt like a dream, but I knew it wasn't. I lifted the blanket, still shaking, and looked around. The tunnel was empty, silent. I turned on my flashlight, scanning the area, but there was nothing. Was it just a trick? A hallucination brought on by hunger and fatigue? Or had something real been here close to me? I didn't know anymore. I grabbed my bag, slung it over my shoulder, and continued my journey. I couldn't stay in one place for too long. The longer I stayed, the more I felt like something was coming for me. I had to keep moving. If you've ever encountered something that defies logic, something that feels too real to be a nightmare, but too impossible to be true, reach out. I need answers. I need to know if this tunnel is just the beginning, or if it's already too late for me. Please, if you have any advice, any theories, anything, let me know. I can't keep going without knowing someone else out there understands. Email me at duskynights145@gmail.com and submit your stories. I'm holding on to the hope that there's someone out there who can help me find a way out before it's too late.